This will be the last video I'll be posting for probably just over a week. And the next thing I do post will be a very long video, and it'll be over on my original channel, Disgruntled Danny, if you're not aware of that one. There are thousands of videos on that channel, most of them are crap. And that's because at this time tomorrow, I'm hoping to be somewhere over France on my way to Lake Garda in beautiful Italy. I'm off on holiday, or if you're watching in the promised land beyond the horizon, I'm on vacation. Now, there are some people who don't say holiday or vacation, and I think this is a very British thing. Instead, they say hollybobs. Are you off on your hollybobs? And to those people, I wish a slow and painful death. The odd thing is that even though holidays are often about relaxation, they can also be very stressful. Checking you have all the right documents, that you've packed everything you'll need for your trip, and then there's the utter farce of airport security, because there's no delicate way to put this. There's no need to check me through security. I am not a danger to an aircraft, but because we have to be politically correct, everyone has to be treated exactly the same. Now, totally true story. A few years ago, we were flying to Northern Ireland, and I got stopped for a random bag search. And the man who searched me, the security guard, his name was Mohammed Hussein. Which one of us is more of a danger to that flight? But anyway, go through the metal detector, and then there's the other thing, the X-ray machine, where you know a salivating pervert is having a quick gander at your genitals. And when it comes to luggage, I only ever pack a cabin bag. Because I know if I take the bag onto the plane myself, it's very unlikely it will end up on the wrong aircraft. Once I put it in the overhead locker thing, and the aeroplane takes off, I know that when it lands at the other end of its journey, it'll still be there. But the same cannot be said for larger luggage, which is stored in the hold. I have suitcases which have been places I never have. For example, 7 or 8 years ago, Mrs. Disgruntled and I had come back from Florence, because we like Italy, and we were waiting at the baggage carousel at Manchester Airport, unaware that our belongings were taking an impromptu trip to Serbia. And given that I've now reached an age where I take medication every day so that I'm not dead, said medication is not very effective if I'm in England and the medication itself is having an overnight trip to a former part of the Soviet Union. And I'm just the average man in the street. Maybe things are more difficult for someone who describes herself as a plus-size influencer. Although, as we'll see, she's more of a plus-size influencer. A Canadian woman called Jaylin Cheney, who describes herself as a plus-size travel vlogger, who has a history of making ridiculous demands. For example, demanding that restaurants change their seating layout so they're more accommodating to plus-size customers. But if you owned a restaurant, say an all-you-can-eat buffet, and Miss Cheney walked in, I guarantee your first thought would be, fuck it, I'm not making any profit tonight. She's the same woman who demanded that hotels have wider corridors. Now, we've all stayed in hotels, and we've all seen those massive trolleys that the cleaners use to transport the laundry. If one of those can fit down a corridor and you can't, who really is the problem? Because I know there are some medical conditions which cause people to gain weight, but for the most part, being morbidly obese is entirely self-inflicted. And last year, Jaylin gained some notoriety after she demanded once again that airlines should provide extra seating for plus-size passengers. Basically, people who are too fat to fit in one seat should be given one or more seats for free, and that these would be subsidised by the other passengers on the aircraft. It sounds like Miss Cheney has a history of making very shitty decisions and refusing to take any responsibility. So I have a clip coming up entitled Things Plus-Size Travellers Hate Part 2. And I haven't seen Part 1, but I'm not overly bothered. I think we'll get the gist of it. In the same way that if I were on an adult entertainment website and saw a video called Asian Lesbian Slut 6, I wouldn't panic thinking I'd best see the first 5 so I understand the plot.
Size travelers hate part 2. Towels that don't fit. People staring all the time. Bunk beds. Souvenir shops that don't have your size. Jib rub. Chairs with arms.
Towels that don't fit. They do fit, love, just not you. And she doesn't like people staring at her? Well, first of all, given that unless she's directly behind you, she's always going to be somewhere in your field of vision. And also, imagine parents on holiday. They've got young children who are paddling in the shallow end of the swimming pool. But then that woman gets into said pool, and the water displacement would mean the same kids would then be drowning. People will pay attention to that. And objecting to bunk beds? Where is she going on vacation? Having a fucking week in IKEA? The souvenir clothing thing, there's two things going on there. I'll imagine I own a hotel, Disgruntled Villas. Why would I keep stock of shirts that I'm very unlikely to sell? Rather than keeping extra small, small, medium, large and extra large. Fast movers that I'll shift all day, every day. And the second thing is, holidays are about selling a dream. It's why the commercials only feature the beautiful people. And the weird thing with souvenir clothing is the customer pays for something with which they then give the seller free advertising. So I'm trying to get people to come and live the dream. They want to be beautiful. I don't want someone like Jaylin advertising my hotel, where the message is, come here and there's a chance you'll meet a wrecking ball that's come to life. And complaining about chairs with armrests. What about the elderly and the infirm, or people who just want to be comfortable? Once again, this is a problem she's caused for herself and is then moaning about it. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Actually, no, I'm not, because I've got another clip coming up where we'll see Miss Cheney with simply mind-blowing levels of false victimhood and entitlement.
My ordeal at SeaTac Airport will shock you. This experience I'm about to share with you is yet another example of why employee sensitivity training, a demand outlined in the plus-size travel petition, is desperately needed. I'm a plus-size wheelchair user, and on a recent flight to the SeaTac Airport, I requested wheelchair assistance, as I always do. When it came time for me to deplane, I saw the employee who would be assisting me with my wheelchair waiting for me in the entry of the jet bridge. As I approached her and she realized she'd be assisting me and not one of the smaller passengers, she started to walk away with the wheelchair while making comments about my size. Even when I told her I really needed the chair and needed her to let me sit down in it, she blatantly ignored me and kept walking. I was then forced to walk up one of the longest jet bridges I've encountered, and she didn't stop. By the time she let me reach the wheelchair and sit down, my lips were white. My oxygen levels had dropped and I almost fainted. This was my first time flying without oxygen. This woman just assumed I could walk and would rather me do that, instead of her having to push someone my size up the jet bridge. All the other attendants wheeled their passengers up the jet bridge, but my needs were disregarded. This is discrimination. Nobody should be treated this way. Share your story at change.org/size travel.
Her oxygen levels were low and her lips went blue because no one pushed her up a ramp in a wheelchair. Is that really the case, or is it that her respiratory system is so overloaded from the baggage her body is carrying that a slight incline is enough to almost kill her? I hope she hasn't invested in a pension. That will be an utter waste of money. One thing though, did anyone else notice this? Her fucking legs work. The impression I get is that our friend Miss Cheney would rather let a stranger risk putting their back out by pushing her in a wheelchair than her actually attempting to propel herself. And it doesn't surprise me that the airline worker ignored her. Why should that person risk knackering his or her knees because Lardy McTubbs can't stop ramming food into her face? Overeating may be a compulsion, but it isn't a disability. I guess eventually she'll get so enormous that her pudgy forearms won't fit into the cookie jar. But then she'll just smash it, saying it was being fat-phobic, demanding that the world is changed for her whilst treating other people like shit. I've got one more clip coming up, which shows just how daft the whole fat acceptance thing is becoming.
People said this was fat phobic because this trail has a size limit because of the narrow passageways. And some people were saying that they need to make the canyon bigger and wheelchair accessible. This is obviously ridiculous, but do you think there's any validity to this argument?
Even if I could fit into that canyon, I wouldn't, because I get claustrophobic, and that to me is a living nightmare. But surely, visiting somewhere like that, the point is to stand there in awe and wonder that it's taken millions of years for that erosion to take place. But now people want to sand it back, to destroy parts of it to make it more accommodating for portly types. That's fucking idiotic. That's the end of this video. I expect tomorrow I'll either be seated next to someone like Jalen, or I'll have some little shit playing a 4-hour drum solo on the back of my airline seat. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already, and as ever, thanks for watching. Which will be posting on my original channel, called Disgruntled Danny. Although, if you're on Disgruntled Danny 2, how would you have found this? I don't fucking know. Give up, Dan, start again. Quite stressful. Fuck it. Of airport security, because there's no nice way of putting this. We all know that I'm not a danger to that aircraft. We also know who is more likely to be a danger to said aircraft. But we're not allowed to say it. I only ever pack a cabin bag, because I know if I take that onto the aeroplane myself, it's very... Potential customers, the dream. Come be one of the beautiful people. Not, there's a good chance you can meet Jabba the Hutt's sister. Fit through that gate, as it were. Which I'm under no illusion, there's no fucking chance I could. Claustrophobic. So to me, that is a living... Oh, fuck it. No. Well, switch off, you prick. There's some fucker going on holiday now.